Hey everyone, it's Nelson Miller here with PA Creative, and today is one of the most exciting days for any Divi user. It is the release of a Divi performance update. This is version 4.10, and if you're just hearing about this from me, then pause this video and go take a look at the Elegant Themes blog and get an idea of what this update is all about, and then come back and learn my take on this. So for many years, the biggest complaint about Divi was never their user interface, never all the features. It was the amount of bloat and the slow speeds that Divi kind of has a reputation for. Well, no longer, because now Divi is completely bloat free, and that is because of this new update, this new performance update. So everyone can stop complaining. And by the way, most of those complaints were due to poor hosting anyway, so get yourself some good hosting. But anyway, this new update is out, and you may be wondering, why am I talking about it? Well, I am in no way intending to take the place of, Nick Roach's video or the Elegant Themes blog post. Go check them out for sure. And then come back, and I'm going to go over something that they did not cover. I'm going to talk about all of the new settings and explain them and try to do my best to explain them in simple terms. But anyway, first of all, before you go anywhere, make sure you do not update until you create a backup or you are updating on your staging server. Okay, those are just standard things. Anytime you create an update, anytime you have an update for a plugin or a theme, you should always be doing that anytime there's a major update, okay? So go test those out before updating live sites and then regretting it, because this is not only a new feature, a new large collection of features. There's a lot packed in here, and so a lot could go wrong, and give them a couple weeks to get all the bugs squashed. All right, so there's going to be a lot of little updates. In fact, already there were a couple hot fixes and a couple even bug fixes released already, because it's an all hands on deck update. So anyway, they want to get all that solved. So anyway, be sure you are doing that before proceeding. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, definitely give me a thumbs up as you go, because I think you're going to enjoy this. And the link to the tutorial, the blog post, is in the description. We're going to head over there now. You can feel free to read this if you want to do that. I have a couple notes here. Like I said, create a backup, test on a staging site, and then clear your cache. Okay, I have a link there for my guide on all the ways to clear your cache. The troubleshooting guide here that I have is actually the how to fix Divi guide. It walks you through all the things you should normally do when you have a problem in Divi, even though it's usually not Divi. But yeah, definitely walk through that before you contact support. So anyway, before we get too far, there's a couple questions that I'm already seeing. Do you still need an optimization plugin? Do I still need a CDN? Yes. Divi is a theme. Divi is a part of the whole system that makes your website, right? So you have your hosting server, and you have WordPress, and you have the Divi theme, and you have plugins and caching plugins and your content delivery network, right? None of that changes. It's just Divi is better. Divi is more efficient, more optimized. It's more smart, actually. So yeah, you will need them. Now, we're going to talk about it, but Divi actually removed two features, the minify and combine JavaScript and CSS. Thank goodness they removed them. It's kind of not relevant anymore because of the way they're doing that now, but I always turn them off anyway. The point there would be never have two plugins or themes or whatever, two functions trying to do the same thing. So yeah, just be mindful of that. Like, maybe take a look through a plugin that you have. Make sure that the browser caching is enabled in that plugin. Make sure that you have a content delivery network set up. There's no excuse to not have that. It's going to really help. It's going to be like a security help and a performance help. Anyway, moving on. We're talking about testing. So, testing, 1, 2, 3. I have that there. Let's we're gonna have so much technical talk when we get down through here a little that you're just gonna be like, okay, enough of this talk. I want to see results. Go do it now. Open up page speed insights from Google there, or GT metrics, or Pingdom tools, whatever your favorite testing tool is there. Open it up and start testing your site. So, for example, if you have a staging site, install the new update on the staging site, and then take a page, the same page from your live site, and test it. Then take the same page from your staging site with the new update and test it, and compare them, and look back and forth and be like, oh yeah, that's better. Oh yeah. I've been doing that all week. So yeah, we actually had the beta because I'm a third-party product creator with our plugins. They gave us the beta to test. But anyway, I've been testing stuff all week, and my assistant has been testing, and we've been testing child themes and WooCommerce stores and blogs and theme builder layouts and all this stuff, right? And so my quick summary on the whole thing is that they're always better. The tests are always better. Now, sometimes they're marginally better. Sometimes they're majorly better. For real. It's like, sometimes you're like, okay, it's better. And then you're like, wow, on the next one, because there's so many factors. And I wasn't even using CDN or caching or anything on my test. But they were just better, a lot better, mostly a lot better. Some things, like when you have a heavy store, you have all those products and all those scripts and even theme builder templates and all the dynamic content and stuff. I noticed, I was like, yeah, there's room for improvement, and they will be improving. Do not forget that this is just one of, at least, I know there's going to be at least another performance update, because they're getting rid of shortcodes and going to just the HTML is going to be rendered on the page directly instead of loading it, so it's like, that's down the road, but that will come eventually too. So it's like, it's going to get better and better. Anyway, I'm rambling. Elegant Themes has a couple test sites, believe it or not. So, like, for example, I got to make them links, but for example, the one they're using, Divi, obviously. So you could grab this URL and then take it to a tool like GT Metrics. So I'll just, if I grab this, so I'll just paste it in there. And then what they want you to do is take, like, Elementor, right? Or, one of the other ones. See, they have these are built with these other builders and stuff. So you can then take that, right? And I could even do this. And, GT Metrics, I guess, doesn't have the mobile. A lot of people are focused on mobile, so you should be using probably just use the Google page speed insights for that. But anyway, so look at this here. This is the Divi test site. Now, it's, there's not a whole lot going on here. So, but look at that. Just look at that. Let's check this one. So pretty good. It's going to be close. It's going to be some things that are a little different if you check, different performance things here. This is the Elementor one. Okay. So Divi is definitely better. And you can, like I said, you can check all these. Gutenberg with Astra, the Beaver Builder theme in Gutenberg, and then Avada and Oxygen. Now, I kind of found a couple of these just by searching, by changing the slug on the end. So if you find some more, let me know. But yeah, and maybe they'll make a post with these too. I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of like everything I need to say, except we're going to talk about the actual new settings now. Let me get rid of some of these here. So when you install the new update, you're going to see this here. There used to be, just the general tab. It was general and then general. Well, now we're on the general tab, and now we have performance. Now, there's a couple things different. The Google Plus icon is gone. And there's two of my least favorite settings. The minify and combine JavaScript and CSS toggles are missing. So that's in the general tab. So that's really good. This is all new. Everything here is new. I think this is how it looked by default. Everything was on except this last one, and that's good. So you can read the little question mark thingy right here, a lot of times it's kind of technical and kind of short. And, I don't know. Do you really care about what it is? If you don't, just you're pretty much done. You can just end the video. But I want to go over it because I know some of you probably care. Or like you just want to have a good understanding of what it's doing because you're like, this is such a cool, great update. But how's it doing that? You're like, that is so cool. If you really want to see, just watch this. If you just want to see how good the team at Elegant Themes is doing. Because I'm telling you what, a lot of these things were intricate and they're logical and they're really, what's the word? Just like intelligent the way it's handling things. So let's go. I'm gonna be looking at the page because all right, the first one, dynamic module framework. So before this update, all right, basically there were assets of every module that were loaded. So if I had a page and I had a text module and an image module, you would think that nothing would load except the things that were needed for those two modules. That would be like the module itself, like the structure, but also like any of the design settings and things that were related to making an image appear, Well, no, actually all of the modules loaded. Not anymore. So now it's dynamic, meaning whatever is on that page, whatever is required for that page will load. So now nothing will load except those things that are specific to, whatever modules you have, okay? I'd like to do a test and do all of the modules on every module that Divi has on one page and then compare it to the old and new updates. Somebody do that for me. But anyway, next one, dynamic CSS. So it's the same thing, and we're going to have another one, dynamic JavaScript. Same concept here, right? Now, I don't know if you ever tried to do this before, but previously, the Divi style sheet was huge. It was about 860 kilobytes. Now, you might say, oh, that's not that big. Try opening it. Actually, don't. It could crash your computer, and I kid you not. It's so huge. There's so many lines. 860 kilobytes of a CSS file. That's a lot. So that's how big it was before. And would you believe? I did the math. It's 94% smaller now at 54 kilobytes. 94%. So let me back up here. We're talking about the main style sheet is that much smaller in general, but it's also dynamic. So we're not even loading all of it. We're only loading now when you load a page, right? It's only loading the CSS that's needed to render whatever you need to render there. Like let's say you don't use WooCommerce on that page. Not going to load the WooCommerce styles. Yay. People have been asking for that for a long time. That's the idea there, where it's only loading what's needed, okay? Same as the dynamic module framework. And actually, yeah, it does the same thing for JavaScript. Anyway, it's a little different. But where are we here? Okay, so dynamic icons. A lot of people I noticed here on day one are having some issues with this. But anyway, right now, apparently, sorry, in the past, all the icons would load, all the built-in icons, but now it's like they're divided into like these little subsets. So like I don't know if it's just one, like if you only had one icon, I'm not sure if it will load just one or if it's like a little group, within the collection. And by the way, they're adding more soon. So anyway, the next one, load dynamic style sheet inline. So again, a lot of this stuff's going to get technical. I'm going to try to make it simple as possible. So it takes the style sheet remember we talked about that style sheet that's now a lot smaller, and it's dequeuing it. So it's basically a queue is a list of things. Like if you're standing in a queue, you're waiting in line, right? So it's dequeuing it. It's taking it out of the wait in line thing, and instead it's printing only that what's needed for when the page loads. It's printing it in line. Yeah, so the advantage is that instead of it needing to wait now, waiting means it was a render blocking resource. So the whole page couldn't render until everything was loaded. Well, you would have to wait for the style sheet to load, and now it can just put it out in line, everything that's needed, and that ties in with the next one, critical CSS. So you have this area on your screen, and you might call it the viewport or the threshold or whatever it is that you want to call the window that you see when you first load the page, right? Now, that needs to be rendered, obviously. You need it to look like the design that you want it to look like, right? You don't want it to be like crazy stuff moving and flashing and popping into view, and you're just like, is it done loading yet? No. So critical CSS will only load what's needed for that top area. Isn't that crazy? It's really cool, actually. Divi is, I think, ahead of the game here. I'm pretty sure that the other competitors don't have this yet. Could be wrong, but anyway, so it's gonna determine what is needed. It's gonna determine what CSS styles are critical or non-critical, right? It's called critical CSS. So anyway, it's gonna determine, what's loaded and what order it's loaded based on that. Now, because of this, your content will actually show up instantly because it doesn't have to wait around. So this is really great. So yeah, Elegant Themes is really nailing it here. Now, speaking of that whole like window viewport, there's this new feature, critical threshold height. And I'll show you that real quick here. So there's low, medium, and high. Now when you think of that, it can be a little confusing, but think of it, there's this like kind of like this line, right? That is somewhere, whether that's the bottom of your viewport or maybe it's a little higher, maybe it's a little higher. So if it's high, medium, or low, we're talking about how high it is, right, on your viewport. And it's kind of this estimated area where it is loading that critical CSS and is inputting the CSS in line instead of loading the style sheet. So a lot of these are kind of working together if you didn't figure that out yet. So this threshold height can vary. Like, you might have a tall monitor or your phone is vertical or landscape. It's going to affect all that. And by the way, you can actually test this and see different performance results by setting it high, low, or medium, and go try it out for real. Like, I played around with that for a while. I was like, wow, it actually is better. So think about it. If you're putting it higher, I have to say this right. If you're putting that higher, yeah, it's reducing the amount of elements that need to render. Yeah. So if it's high, it's reducing the amount of elements that need to render. And therefore, it could actually help the cumulative layout shift. So anyway, this is a big topic right now. When things move, when you're trying to load your page and things go, or like you're trying to click and your thing moves and you're like, I tried to click on that and it moved. It's very annoying and Google hates it. Trust me. Google is serious about this now. Anyway, that will actually help that. And I did some tests, and having it on low or high, putting it on high, I got 0 CLS issues. But when it was on low, I had like a 0.2 or something. Anyway, so yeah, try that, play around with that. Now, we talked about the dynamic JavaScript thing, and basically there's, obviously the JavaScripts that code that needs to load for different things. And one of the things that they did was actually break up the JavaScript. So it used to be certain settings for like the scroll settings, the scroll effects. All of it was in one file, kind of, and now it's broken up into what we're gonna call bundles. And so if something's not needed, it won't load. It's the same concept as that dynamic CSS or the dynamic module framework. So it's really great. And Divi their Elegant Themes is saying it reduces the amount of JavaScript by 50%. Now, the next one is disable WordPress emojis. Now, this is something, WordPress actually is the one that's adding the emojis. So it's not Divi, but it's kind of undoing what WordPress adds because you don't really need this anymore. A lot of the browsers actually support this on their own. So WordPress doesn't really need it. So the next one, defer Gutenberg block CSS. This is another great one because, you know, when you go to a page or post, right, and you click enable Divi builder, well, guess what? You're using the Divi builder, not the Gutenberg block editor. So why should there be code loading for Gutenberg, waiting and being in line and all that? You know, you don't want that. So what they're doing is they're not actually removing it completely. In a sense, they're lazy loading it because they're deferring it. They're deferring it to the footer, and therefore when you're loading the page, it waits till last to load because it doesn't need to load because you're using Divi, right? Oh, and I kind of interjected this, but render blocking resources. A lot of these things are revolving around render blocking resources. When you do one of those page speed tests, you'll see that as like a thing. You know, you need to reduce your render blocking resources. And what is that? Well, basically it's all of the files, the render blocking resources, all the files that are needed to render that page, right? And what happens is if it's render blocking, it's stopping the browser from rendering it, meaning it's not downloading those necessary files until they're all processed. So like they're gonna all load, but it's delaying everything. So deferring it, if it's something that's going to delay it and you defer it, kind of get it out of the way, then it's going to help because therefore the things that do need to load don't need to wait on each other. I'm explaining this badly, I think. Anyway, we'll stop there. Anyway, improve Google Fonts loading. So, you know, Google is already they already have everything optimized pretty good, but there's still a little bit of this. There is a little bit of load that happens because the font needs to be loaded on each page, right? So now what they are doing is caching the Google fonts and rendering them inline. So now when the page loads again, it's another one of these render blocking things that improves that because the fonts that are required can just load in line rather than waiting their turn to load. And again, everything's waiting on each other. And anyway, there's an improvement here. And then this is a little one, you know, they basically remove legacy font files. Defer jQuery and jQuery migrate. This is a tricky setting, and I don't know. I think they're going to have some issues with this, at least for now. The idea behind this is that Divi is going to evaluate all of the jQuery that the page is requesting. And it's going to say, hey, is this needed? Is this really needed when I'm loading the page, right? And if it's not, it's going to move it to the body. And that's going to speed up load times. The problem we run into is that there's a lot of plugins out there. And some plugins rely on having their jQuery registered in the head. So when Divi is moving their jQuery to the body, they're not going to like that and things are going to break and whatever. So they say that it will move it back if that's happening. So I'm just saying there'll probably be some issues with that. Make sure you report it when you see that, when you see JavaScript errors. And then this one here, enqueue jQuery compatibility script. So this is like a safeguard feature. It's a way that makes third-party scripts properly enqueued. And again, if something is breaking, like if you're going to, like when you right click and you go to the browser tools, if you're seeing JavaScript errors, then kind of take note and turn this setting off and see what it does, see if it fixes it, and you can let other teams know about that. Now the last one here, defer additional third-party scripts. Basically, this is it's trying to shift the scripts that plugins and themes, and I guess it's, when it says third party, it's referring to third party like child themes and plugins and everything like that. It's trying to move them to the body, and it's just one of those things that they actually turned it off. I think it was turned on when we first got the beta to test, and then they turned it off on the actual release because there was some conversations around this in the private chats here that there was some problems. So anyway, it was good that they turned it off. They and the nice thing is they can change that by default for future installs, depending on when they feel this is ready. In fact, I guess for all these settings, right? They could change any of that the default. So you can kind of, just check them out when you install it. Take a look over that, and hopefully, maybe they'll even add more settings, different things that we can change. Now, I don't know if I talked about it much, but their actual post here has a lot of information. And if you're still with me, congratulations on, I don't know, caring a lot about technical things in Divi. But yeah, like I was kind of saying before, does it help you appreciate all of the work Elegant Themes has been doing? Now, I know for a fact they've been working on this update since very early on in 2020 when they were having some meetings and deciding what is the future of Divi. We're either going to keep chugging along and try to get by adding new features, or we're going to have to rebuild Divi from the ground up. And after a lot of debate, from what I understand, well, obviously, according to Nick Roach and some of the stuff he's leaked out, is that, yeah, they're more foundational updates are coming. I don't know if you call this a foundational update, but I would. But more foundational updates are also coming into the future in the next couple of years even. So if you enjoyed this video, if you appreciate something in my take, if you think it was worth my time going over all this, then give me a thumbs up. If you thought it was pathetic, then don't comment. Just, no, you can't. I'm just kidding. I'm in a silly mood because it's like 2 a.m. and on the day that they released this here. So anyway, I really need to get to bed. Go play around, and like I said, just test. Just really go test it. Have fun testing it and being like, and then one thing to keep in mind with that is do a bunch of tests, because actually Divi said they took 6 tests and they took 5 out of the 6 and averaged them or something to give you like, an average. Just trying to be fair, because there are sometimes like you do a test and you're like, what in the world? And then you do it again, you're like, yeah, something was off with that. So anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. This is a big update. This is really big. So enjoy it. I'm going to slowly be updating my sites, all my client sites, and if I find anything that I think is worthwhile doing another video on, then I will do that. And leave some comments if you think I should do some follow-ups about anything in particular. All right, other than that, be subscribed. We do tutorials here, a little different than this video, but tutorials every single Tuesday here on YouTube and on the blog. So be sure you are subscribed. And hey, we're going to see you all in our next video then.